Hare Krishna. Nice to see everybody here.
One second, one announcement.
Oh yes, please.
Today you don't need you don't need tickets. The feast is sponsored. The feast has been sponsored for the Darpan and Kandeshi family in the name of the Darpan father and mother and Kandeshi fathers. We're going to say thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you.
So everybody can eat more prasadam than usual. So thank everyone for coming. We're going to sing Jaya Radha Madhava. And is there a harmonium player in the house by chance? Okay, well, we can do. There's a lot of great Mridanga players, so Hare Krishna Prabhu. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari, Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jayom Vishnupad Paramahamsa Paribrajakacharya Astotarashata Sri Srimad His Divine Grace Abhaya Charanaravinda Bhakti Vedanta Goswami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON, BBT, Founder Acharya, His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Anantakota Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. ISKCON Guru Vrinda Ki Jai. Prem Sikaho Sri Krishna Chaitanya, Prabhu Nityananda, Sri Advaita Gadadhar, Sri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Sri Sri Radha Krishna, Gopa Gopinath, Shai Mukunda Radhakunda, Giri Govardhan Ki Jai. Sri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Sri Navadvip Mayapur Dham Ki Jai. Shri Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai, Nu Govardhan Dham Ki Jai, Ganga Mai Ki Jai, Yamuna Mai Ki Jai, Tulasi Devi Ki Jai, Bhakti Devi Ki Jai, Samaveda Bhakta Brinda Ki Jai, Brihat Mridanga Ki Jai, Shri Harinam Sankirtan Ki Jai, Nitai Gaur Premanandi Hari Hari Bol, Sunday Festival Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to the divine lotus feet of Sri Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Hare Krishna. So we're going to have a little discussion from the Srimad Bhagavad-gita, as it is. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So it's very nice to see a lot of familiar faces, so many wonderful devotees. And so I have a question. Usually you would say, has anyone here read the Bhagavad-gita? But I think I'll say, has anyone here not read the Bhagavad-gita? Don't feel shy. So everyone's pretty familiar with the Bhagavad-gita as it is, yeah? Wonderful, wonderful. So I thought the theme for tonight's discussion is what's in a book, and specifically what's in this book, the Bhagavad-gita as it is. And I guess the reason that I wanted to discuss that, the other day I was attending the morning class and the Srimad Bhagavatam that the devotees hold here 7 days a week, virtually 365 days a year, except for maybe LA Ratha Yatra Day, I'm not sure. And Balaram Prabhu, most regular devotees here know Balaram Prabhu, wonderful devotee. So he was giving the class, and he mentioned, just getting my other glasses so I can read, he mentioned that, nowadays, some people have said, they don't see as much importance in book distribution, and because less people are reading books, familiar with books. And I was in the kitchen cutting up vegetables, but I was listening, and I was kind of shocked. Of course, I'm 65 years old, so what do I know about current trends, But anyway, it kind of stuck with me, and later, I discussed it with him a little further, and it just kind of got on my mind, So I was thinking, like, hopefully that's not the case, and hopefully if it is the case, that there'll be a firm revival in the value of books in the popular consciousness, because it kind of took me back to a time in my own life. Actually, I was in 8th grade, and I had been going to the temple just for less than a year, and I had to take a train. I actually went to a boarding school, and I had read the Krishna book and the Sri Upanishad, and I wanted to get something to read, and I went into the bookstore in my hometown. I grew up in a small town, and there was one bookstore in the town, and there it was. Prabhupada's Bhagavad-gita, as it is, had just been published, unabridged. The abridged had come out earlier. This was 1972, I believe. And the unabridged had just come out, and there it was, shining on the shelf, and I was in shock, because there it was, So I bought it, and I got on the train, and I had about 3 hours worth of train rides, and so I just started reading it, and it was just like, I have to say, the most profound philosophical thing I've ever read in my life. And that was, 50 years ago. And since then, I've been through a few times, and I've never read the Bhagavad-gita another time that it wasn't just as profound or even more profound of an experience. I mean, if you think of a book where the speaker is Lord Sri Krishna, and he speaks to every soul, right? Srila Prabhupada, when he was describing the potency of spiritual sound vibration, particularly the Hare Krishna mantra, he said it's a spiritual sound, and it acts directly on the heart and the soul. It penetrates all the lower strata of consciousness, namely sensual, mental, and intellectual, and it actually penetrates all of the physical, all of the material aspects of ourself that we are identifying with, the gross and subtle bodies, and it acts directly on the soul, which is the Atma, the self, the real us, right, within the body. Similarly with Bhagavad-gita. And Srila Prabhupada's purports, the reason this version is called Bhagavad-gita as it is because Srila Prabhupada is a pure devotee of Krishna. And in the 4th chapter of the Bhagavad-gita, Lord Kṛṣṇa revealed that this Bhagavad-gita, even 5,000 years ago, when he was preparing to speak it to Arjuna, he had begun speaking it to Arjuna. He was in the 4th, what we know is the 4th chapter. But he told Arjuna, Krishna mentioned that long ago I explained this science to the sun god. And the sun god, Vivasvan, explained it to his son, Manu, the father of mankind. And Manu explained it to Ikshvaku, one of the first kings on earth in that dynasty. And then it was coming down through the chain of Rajarshis, Raja Rishis, saintly kings, kings who were saints, right? And it was coming down for thousands and millions of years. In due course of time, because time takes away everything in this world, as we know, time creates constant changes, and constantly erodes away things that you wish were still there, like that. So Krishna detected that in the annals of time, this science had become lost. He said, therefore, I am appearing now, and I am speaking this same science to you. And why am I speaking to you? He said, because bhakto si me sakachati, because you are my bhakta, you are my devotee, and you are my Sakha, you are my friend. Because you are my devotee and my friend, therefore you will be able to understand the transcendental mysteries of this spiritual science. And through you, everyone else will be benefited. Sripad Shankaracharya, and of course he's the leader of the Mayavadis, so-called, but Srila Prabhupada quotes him. He, I believe it's called Gīta Mahatmya, and he gives this nice example, right? That Arjuna is like the calf, you know, like when you bring the calf before the mother cow is very happy to give the milk, right? So like Arjuna is the calf that inspired Krishna to give this milk of the Bhagavad-gita, right? And everyone knows, of course, the calf doesn't drink. You know, some of these cows on the devotee farms, they give like gallons and gallons of milk. Of course, it's described in the Brahma Samhita that in the spiritual world, the Sarabi cows give limitless oceans of milk. So anyway, the cows give a lot of milk. The calves drink a little bit. And the idea is there that the rest of the milk is to nourish everyone else. So in the same way, Krishna spoke Bhagavad-gita. He chose the perfect devotee and friend, and Arjuna asked the perfect questions, Krishna gave the perfect answers, and that topmost milk of spiritual nourishment came through Arjuna and for all of us. So anyway, that was my introduction to the Bhagavad-gita as it is. And so when I was, contemplating this idea that, people aren't reading books, and you hear that the attention span, because everything, this digital age, right, everything is like snap, 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 isn't it? Like I heard the other day that the average attention span now is shorter than it was, maybe 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, right? Everything is very, very instant, right? But actually, there's so much value. Every word. One time Srila Prabhupada was speaking about the devotees distributing his books. And he actually said that every word, every line, if they even touch the book, if they read a few verses, right? If they read a few words, they're benefited, So, these books are very, very important. So anyway, that's kind of why I was thinking, what's in a book and what's in this book, because there's so much in this book. I was reading, I don't have it in front of me, but you read these quotes from people that are famous, like Albert Einstein, right? He read the Bhagavad-gita, and he was thinking, this is the most important thing to actually understand how God is doing all this, how God is creating, maintaining the universes. Very great minds, they have read the Bhagavad-gita and appreciated the significant messages that Lord Kṛṣṇa has given. And this has been going on for thousands and thousands of years, right? So this is our great fortune that Srila Prabhupada came to the Western world, and he actually gave us Bhagavad-gita as it is, in such an authorized fashion, with the Devanagari script, with the Roman transliteration, with the word-by-word to English, with the sentence translation, and finally his purports. And his purports, for most people, are like the key. These purports are the key. Again, I have to step back once again, because when I got the Bhagavad-gita as it is, that day, that wasn't the first time I'd read the Bhagavad-gita. About 6 months before that, I had read the Penguin published Gita. And the Penguin Gita is just the translations in English. So, just the Bhagavad-gita verses translated into English. And I read through it, and I thought, wow, this is a really cool epic poem. And, beyond that, like, this is mystical, this is cool, wow, cool. Beyond that, I didn't grasp anything, other than that, Krishna was great, and this is a really amazing book and a lot of interesting stuff. But like the idea that there's a purpose to human life, and that, the goal is to become a devotee of the Lord, and none of that was there, for me. I was unable to grasp anything. Srila Prabhupada, he was translating the Bhagavad-gita, and he was consulting the tikas, the previous commentaries on the Bhagavad-gita, by over 1,000 years of great learned acharyas. Acharya means one who teaches by example. So he was consulting the commentaries of recognized devotee teachers throughout the span of time, and weaving into those understandings his own realizations as a pure devotee of Krishna, as a friend of Krishna, serving Krishna in the modern world, right? In the Western world, going where actually where no pure devotee of Krishna had ever gone before, quite frankly, right? I mean, Srila Prabhupada's coming to the West is an odyssey, you know, and it was a great austerity, and it was a incredible labor of love and devotion to his spiritual master and to the mission of the Lord to give us this Bhagavad Gita as it is anyway. So along with the verses, Srila Prabhupada's purports are just of, you know, the utmost significance and value and benefit for all of us. So if by any wild chance anyone does not have a copy of the Bhagavad Gita as it is, by His Divine Grace, Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, please do yourself one of the biggest favors you'll ever do yourself. And before you leave tonight, check with any of these young men in saffron cloth, and they will find you a Bhagavad Gita, I can guarantee it. They actually go out all over the city in a mood of compassion on the order of Srila Prabhupada and on the order of their spiritual masters, and they distribute these books in Balboa Park. They distribute them in La Jolla when everyone goes down to see the seals. Dimitri might be there to share them information about the person that made the seals, you know, so like that. So the devotees are going everywhere, to parks and to, you know, in our generation we used to go to parking lots. We hadn't wised up yet, but now they go to parks, and it's a very nice arrangement. So anyway, please avail yourself of the opportunity if anyone doesn't have one, and take home a Bhagavad Gita, and I guarantee you, you'll be very, very glad that you did. So anyhow, as far as what's in this book, what's in this Bhagavad Gita, I started reading the introduction again, and Srila Prabhupada's introduction to the Bhagavad Gita as it is about the most amazing work that you can ever read. It's about a 30-page essay, and it is just like incredible, you know, just bursting with spiritual knowledge, just overflowing with transcendental wisdom. And so one of the things he explains, and let me switch glasses, I'm going to read one little section of his introduction. It is on page 7 of the introduction, if anybody's holding a book and would like to read along. Give me 1 second here. Okay, so first we're going to do a quiz, because again, when I look around and realize that many of us here are devotees who have read the Bhagavad Gita many times. So Srila Prabhupada explains that the subject of the Bhagavad Gita entails the comprehension of 5 basic truths. What are they? One at a time, don't blurt them all out. Hare Krishna Prabhu.
That we are spirit soul, we are not this body.
That we are a spirit soul, we are not this body. We are technically known as a jiva. Thank you, Prabhu. What's another one of the 5 basic truths that our Lord Krishna gives in the Bhagavad Gita? Don't be shy. Exactly. Prakriti, material nature. And as you begin to break that down, there are 3 modes of that material nature. And it's interesting because throughout the introduction, Srila Prabhupada describes that, and he kind of interchangeably describes it as the material nature and as the cosmic manifestation. So just like the material nature has 3 modes, the material nature is also what the cosmic manifestation is constituted of. Okay, so we have the jivas, and we have prakriti, the material nature. Guru Krishna Prabhu. Mata. Please accept mine.
It is 5, the 5 elements.
Thank you. Okay, we're just doing one each, then that's perfect. Ishvara, and that's actually the very first, so thank you. But we're going to give 2 more people the opportunities. So Ishvara is?
Ishvara is the Supreme Personality.
Thank you. Ishvara is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, right? So Ishvara means controller, and when this word reaches its ultimate zenith, you're talking about the Supreme Controller, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Thank you, Mataji. Yes, Prabhu. Time, exactly, Kala, time. So this is the 4th. So we have the Supreme Lord, we have the individual souls, the living entities. We have the material nature. And all of this is being propelled by time. Yes. Huh? No, we've done 4. You're the 5th. Karma. Ding, 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 ding. Thank you, thank you. So these are the 5, Srila Prabhupada says, 5 basic truths. And so we're going to read. Thank you all for giving those truths. The subject of the Bhagavad-gita entails the comprehension of 5 basic truths. First of all, the science of God is explained, so that's Ishvara, and then the constitutional position of the living entities, jivas. There is Ishvara, which means the controller, and there are jivas, the living entities which are controlled. If a living entity says that he is not controlled, but that he is free, then he is what? An illusion. That's the gentle version, and the word Prabhupada uses is a little stronger. It also begins with in. Insane. The living being is controlled in every respect, at least in his conditioned life. So in the Bhagavad-gita, the subject matter deals with the Ishvara, the supreme controller, and the jivas, the controlled living entities, prakriti, material nature, and time, the duration of existence of the whole universe, or the manifestation of material nature, and karma, activity, are also discussed. The cosmic manifestation is full of different activities. All living entities are engaged in different activities. From Bhagavad-gita, we must learn what God is, what the living entities are, what the cosmic manifestation is, how it is controlled by time, and what the activities of the living entities are. So, and I'm going to read one other little section on the same point, just how Prabhupada describes these things, and then we're going to try to give little glimpses of some of those through some of the verses. Give me one sec here. Just going to page 12. If I can find it, give me one sec. Okay, yeah, so this is just another short paragraph where Prabhupada describes it again. We shall find, therefore, in this Bhagavad-gita, that the complete whole is comprised of the Supreme Controller, the controlled living entities, the cosmic manifestation, eternal time, and karma, or activities. And all of these are explained in this text. All of these, taken completely, form the complete whole. And the complete whole is called the Supreme Absolute Truth. The complete whole and the complete Absolute Truth are the complete personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna. All manifestations are due to his different energies. He is the complete whole. Right? So this is really what's important in this world. Lord Kṛṣṇa is laying out the situation very, very clearly so that we don't get diverted, or I have a friend named Tara, sometimes he uses the word bamboozled, so we don't get bamboozled by all the shiny, flickering possibilities for material enjoyment in this material world, and thus lose this very, very valuable opportunity of being conscious in the human form of life with the Bhagavad-gita in front of us, right? So, very, very important. So just to look at these a little more, so this Ishvara. So in the Bhagavad-gita, there's lots and lots of places where Krishna talks about his position as the Ishvara. So one of them is one of the so-called nutshell verses of the Bhagavad-gita in the 10th chapter, where Krishna talks about himself and all of the amazing things that come from him. So can someone share that verse? Bhagavad-gita 10:10. This is one of the 4 nutshell verses, guys. If you're a card carrying, hurry. Go ahead, Parashakti. Please. Thank you, Mother Parashakti. Exactly. Lord Kṛṣṇa actually reveals that he is the source of all spiritual and material worlds. Everything emanates from him. Everything. In Spanish, anybody speak Spanish? Todos. Todos, todos. Everything emanates from Him. The wise who know this perfectly, right? If someone knows this, what else is there to do? They engage in my devotional service, right? With heart and soul, like that, with determination. So that's one of the verses where Krishna reveals, something about what it is to be the Supreme Personality of Godhead and what that can actually do for us, right? What opportunity that affords us, right? There's another verse, it's sometimes called the peace formula. Who wants to share this one? 529, the peace formula? Huh? Everybody knows this one. It's been on pamphlets, it's been handed out at, Huh? Bhoktaram yagya tapasam sarvaloka maheshwaram suridam sarvabhutanam matgatramam shantam richati, right? So, who wants to give the translation? Huh?
The Supreme Lord is the Bhokta.
Uh-huh.
He's the enjoyer of everything.
Mm-hmm. All sacrifices and austerities.
Yeah, all the sacrifices and austerities,
Huh?
doing it for Him.
Mm-hmm.
He's the Supreme enjoyer.
Mm. And Sarvaloka Maheshwaram? Huh? Sarvaloka Maheshwaram? What's Loka? Planet. He's the Supreme Lord of all planets and demigods. Huh? And now let's get real personal. Suridam Sarvabhutanam. The best friend and well-wisher of all living entities. So this Hrid, Su, right? Suridam, best bosom friend. I heard a devotee explain it the other day, right? Just imagine you have a friend who their friendship with you is so heartfelt. They're in your heart. Actually, Lord Kṛṣṇa expands into each and every one of our hearts as the super soul, right? He's accompanying us through eons of births in this material world, out of love, out of friendship, right? Hey Krishna, Karuna Sindhu, Dino Bandho Jagatpate, right? Krishna, He's Karuna Sindhu, He's an ocean of mercy. He's Dina Bandho, He's the friend of the poor. We might be in the body of a dog running around barking at some nice devotee trying to steal the flowers to offer to Radha Giridhari, and Krishna's in their heart, right? So that's a joke. But the point is that Krishna accompanies us through all of these species of life. There's that saying in the Bible, or I believe biblical literature, man proposes, God disposes. Krishna is arranging for the fulfillment of all of our desires in the myriads of species that we may take birth in as we sojourn on in this material world according to our karmic activities, right? And He is helping us at every step, right? But His own desire is that we come back to Him. So He's just waiting till we get a little bit frustrated with this struggle for happiness in the material world and realize that we'll never, ever be happy here, and that we turn towards Him. And as soon as we turn towards Him even a little bit, right, He's just waiting for that moment. So this is Suridam. He's tolerating everything. He's tolerating us ignoring Him for lifetimes, just waiting for that one moment where we stop ignoring Him and we turn to Him and say, Krishna. I heard this morning, actually, Bhadrinarayan Maharaj was giving class, and he quoted a real nice devotee. Many of you know Vaisheshika Prabhu, right? They're actually having, many of the devotees that live here are in the temple now. They're celebrating his appearance day. So 7 devotees from San Diego went up for that. Anyway, Bhadrinarayan Maharaj mentioned this morning that Vaisheshika Prabhu was at the questions and answer booth at the Los Angeles Ratha Yatra, and someone asked him, what does Hare Krishna mean? And he said, I need help. So Hare Krishna in our heart, He's just waiting for that moment when we turn to Him and say, I need help, right? So that's Suridam, Sarvabhutanam. Sarvabhutanam means all living beings, and Suridam means the friend who's sitting in our heart, our dearest, most heartfelt well-wisher, who's just tolerating everything, waiting to help us as soon as we ask for help, right? So where do you find a better friend? Right? So this is Ishvara. This is the Supreme Lord. He's all-powerful. He's being served. Lakshmi Sahasrasata Sambrama Sevyamanam. He's being served by hundreds of millions of gopis. Right? Everybody in this world is begging for the mercy of the goddess of fortune, that they get a few bucks in their bank account. Krishna is being served by hundreds of millions of goddesses of fortune. He's being offered milk and butter and yogurt by unlimited numbers of Surabi cows who are emitting oceans of milk, right? But in the midst of all of that, he is not forgetting even one of us for 1/1,000,000th of a second. Rather, he's sitting in our heart, just waiting for us. So this is Ishvara. He has everything, he's in control of everything, but he wants to share love with each and every one of us. This is Krishna, right? So then there's Jiva. So Jiva is us, the individual souls, and we'll just go there for a minute. Well, let's do Prakriti first, because it's kind of consecutive. So Prakriti is material nature. So Lord Kṛṣṇa explains in the 7th chapter, he explains the constituents of his material energy. So who wants to share that verse? Begins with Bhumi, which means earth. Bhumir Apanalo. Janavi? You haven't said yet? No, you're pointing to her, but okay. Oh, okay, go ahead, Mata. Thank you. Translation? Thank you very much. Right. So as Mataji is pointing out, earth, water, fire, air, ether, those are the 5 gross material energies. Mind, intelligence, and ego, these are the 3 subtle material energies. So this Prakriti, this material nature, is comprised of these components, right? So, and it's very interesting if you study the process of creation as it's explained in the Srimad Bhagavatam and the Vedic literatures. It's really interesting because when the time for creation comes, it's all cyclical. There's creation, maintenance, and dissolution through vast, vast cycles of time. And time is another one of the representatives of the Lord, one of the great truths of the Bhagavad-gita. So the Lord actually manifests the material nature. These material universes are coming out of the body of Mahavishnu, one of Lord Krishna's incarnations that he incarnates as for the purpose of the material creation, right? So Maha means great, right? Great Vishnu. This is a very great form, and from his body are coming universes. But these universes are just composed of the material energy, right? So at that point they're called pradhan. They're just like inanimate. They're just kind of, it's all there, but nothing's happening. And then Sa Aikshata, he glances over the material nature. Sa Imau Lokan Asrijata, and that glance personified is Shambhu, is Lord Shiva. And within that glance of Lord Mahavishnu is contained all of the jiva souls. All of us are contained in that glance, and that glance shoots as a glance goes to the material nature, to these material balls that have come out, the universes, and that glance goes into those material universes, and this living entities going in there, that sets everything in motion, because matter is inert. So this Prakriti, this material energy, is inert. This is called Krishna's inferior energy because it's not conscious, right? So then in the next verse, in the 7th chapter, Lord Kṛṣṇa talks about the jivas. And anyone like to share that verse? Not you, you're too smart. The Aparayam, Itastvanyam. Yayidam. Daryate. Thank you. And translation? We'll look it up real quick. Besides this inferior nature of mine, I believe it begins, let's see. This is describing the jivas. Might as well read it exact. 1 second, please. Okay, here we go. Besides these, O mighty armed Arjuna, there is another superior energy of mine, which comprises the living entities who are exploiting the resources of this material inferior nature. Okay, so now we have Ishvara, we have Prakriti, and now we have the jivas. So the jivas have entered into the Prakriti, they've entered into the material nature, and we are imbued with a desire to try and exploit the resources of this material inferior nature. And again, a couple key words here. Krishna says, the jivas, this is my superior energy. So the material energy is Krishna's energy, but he labels it as inferior. And that's because it is unconscious. And the jivas, the spirit souls, Lord Kṛṣṇa describes as his superior energy because we are conscious, right? We are conscious. So this is an important distinction that Lord Kṛṣṇa makes. Lord Kṛṣṇa, Parasya Shaktir Vivadhaya Vishuddha, he has many, many energies, and everything that exists is Krishna's energy. It's just different types of energies, right? So you have the material world, we are living in the material world, we are conscious, and in our conditioned state, we are trying to exploit the resources of material nature. But to do that, what happens? We accept an interface, right? Like, interface has become a more popular word in the modern world because we interface with so many devices, right? And you have to get your computer to hook up to your printer to hook up to your device, right? And if you don't have the right interface, you're pounding on the desk and pulling your hair out if you're my age, or if you're 15 or 16, you're just kind of whizzing through, But anyway, this concept of you have to be able to interface. So we are imbued with consciousness, right? We are the superior energy. And just going to give a little discussion here on this point. Why is it that we, the living entities, are in this material world trying to exploit this material nature, right? And this could be a discussion for, millions of years, but we're going to try to do the real nutshell version. Unfortunately, Srila Prabhupada has given us all the information we need. So, in order to have relationships, right, one has to have free will. One has to be a person, right? There's no meaning to relationship without free will, right? And like Prabhupada gave that example, that if you come to a person and you point a gun at their head and say, love me, the person might say, oh yeah, I love you. But it's not a very deep type of love. It's more of a survival instinct, or, like that, a coping mechanism, right? And as soon as the person turns their head the other way, you're out the door, right? Running for your life, right? So, Krishna is not interested in that, but so he wants to have genuine loving relationships. Krishna and we living entities, it's actually described Anandamayo Bhyasat, that we are by nature seeking happiness, right? So we are seeking happiness, Krishna is seeking happiness, and Krishna is, as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he is the supreme enjoyer. And as we are living entities, we are, the word is used part and parcel, right? There's another verse in the 15th chapter where it says, Mama vamso, jiva loke. So this amsha, mama is my, and amsha means part and parcel. So Krishna is saying, the living entities are my eternal parts and parcels, right? We are, and because we are parts and parcels of Krishna, we are endowed with the same qualities of Krishna. So sometimes people get confused about this because they think, well, if we are part and parcel of Krishna, therefore we're all God. But the Srila Prabhupada points out this misunderstanding is that although qualitatively we are one with God, meaning we have the same qualities as God because we are Krishna's superior spiritual energy, the difference is in quantity. We are infinitesimal and Krishna is infinite, right? And our existence hinges on Krishna's existence, and Krishna is the business is enjoyment. Krishna is the predominating enjoyer, and we are the predominated enjoyer. That's why we are known as Prakriti. We are Para Prakriti. That means the superior nature, and matter is apara prakriti, which is the inferior nature. But Krishna is Purusha. He is the enjoyer. And so our real happiness comes in our relationship with Krishna. So when we are able to revive our eternal loving relationship with Krishna, then the full potential of love, the full potential of relationship can be realized. Because we are eternal and Krishna is eternal. When we repose our loving propensity in relationships in the material world, those relationships can be reciprocal and they can be very valuable, but there are certain limitations due to the fact that we are an eternal being living in a temporary circumstantial body, right? Srila Prabhupada calls this an incompatible situation, right? So although we try our best to reciprocate in loving relationships in this world, even if everything goes great, which we hope it does, still time and tide wait for none. Eventually, you know, birth, death, old age, and disease, we grow old, we die, and you know, so we experience that heartbreak of those relationships ending, and that's nowadays that's fortunate that people get to go through a whole life, and you know, have death be what ends the relationship. So, but anyhow, we're meant for actually much, much, much more than that in terms of our relationships. So we are endowed with free will, and therefore we can choose to reciprocate in our relationship with Krishna, or we can choose to enjoy separately from Krishna. And Krishna therefore creates a sphere where we can try to enjoy separately from Krishna, and that's here, that's the material world. And therefore, to try to enjoy the resources of this material world, we accept a material body, which is our interface with which to try to exploit matter around us, right? So that's basically what's happening there. And all this is happening under the purview of time, just like there's a time cycle of the universe, there's a time cycle of individual lifespans in different species of life on different planets, right? So everything is controlled by time. Time is constantly mixing, right? There's the three modes of nature, like you mentioned, goodness, passion, and ignorance, and time is interacting with the modes of nature, and the material world is going on, and we are becoming entangled. Our activities, we come to the last one, karma. So karma means that we're performing activities, and these activities are producing reactions, right? And according to the quality of our activities, there's a quality of reaction, and these are generally classified as, you know, good karma, bad karma, mediocre karma, I guess you could say, medium karma, like that. So if karma is really bad, we suffer more in the future, right? Lord Kṛṣṇa says in the Bhagavad-gita, you know, those who live in the mode of goodness go up to the higher planetary systems where there are better facilities for happiness and enjoyment. Those in the modes of passion live on the earthly planets, and those in the mode of ignorance go down to the hellish world. So there's a constant cycle of, you know, going around and around and around, and this is karma. You know, so it's also pointed out, however, that of these five basic truths, karma, the fifth, is the only one that's temporary. The other four are eternal. And this is kind of interesting. Prakriti is eternal. It's constantly transforming. The material nature is constantly transforming, but it's an eternal principle. But karma, although it can affect us for millions and millions of births, it's not eternal, right? It is based on action and reaction. And the cycle of karma can be stopped. The cycle of karma can be stopped, and this is a big part of why it's important to understand these five basic truths of Bhagavad-gita. Because if we understand who God is, who we are, what this world is, how this world is going on under the purview of time, and how karma is causing us to take birth again and again and again in the cycle of species, in the wheel of samsara in this material universe, causing us to take birth, death, old age, and disease again and again and again, right? If we understand how all this is going on, and then Lord Krishna reveals how we can actually end this cycle, right? So if we understand that we're kind of like stuck like a gerbil on a treadmill, so to speak, right? We're just going, and we're never really getting anywhere, right? You know, okay, you became the president, but guess what happens? You know, you turn 87 and you die, you know, and destination unknown. We heard this morning that the first Prime Minister of India, after Swaraj, after independence, the first Prime Minister, Pandit Nehru, who was really into rapid industrialization and threw all Gandhi's principles under the bus. But anyway, the first great Prime Minister of India, according to one prominent astrologer, in his next life, he became a, what kind of dog was it? Anyway, he was a big dog in the Swedish embassy, right? He was very, very fond of European culture, and his karma wasn't so great. And he was really into politics. So he didn't have to leave the political arena, but he became a dog in the Swedish embassy, right? So Prabhupada said, one great astrologer has said. So anyway, you know, Prabhupada gave a little disclaimer there. He wasn't saying it personally. He was quoting one great astrologer. But the point is, no matter how great we can become in this material world, right? No matter how great we become, we must fall down. There's no question, right? And this principle of time, this kala, Krishna is time, this is also the one manifestation of God that no one can avoid. On the battlefield of Kurukshetra, Krishna said, time I am, the great destroyer of the world, and I have come to engage all men. Ladies too. So, you know, even if we say, who cares for God? I don't care for your God. I'll fight my own way. I did it my way, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so they meet God as time, at the time of death, right? So, you know, there's no... You know, everyone meets God in one way or another. But if we meet God in the Bhagavad-gita, He lays it out. There's a beautiful verse. There's a beautiful, beautiful verse where in one verse Krishna explains, of course there's many, many verses where Krishna explains, but there's one verse where Krishna lays out how we can very quickly and very easily, and not by the sweat of our own brow, but rather by the mercy of the Supreme Lord, we can completely overcome the all-powerful material energy with everything she can throw at us. Who can share that verse? Begins with Daivi. Pandit. It's Parashakti. Thank you. This divine energy of mind, Prakriti, consisting of the three modes of material nature, is very difficult to overcome. Who can overcome it? But then he says, but one who surrenders unto me can easily cross beyond it, right? Right? One who surrenders unto me. Prabhupada gives the example of the cat and the rat, right? Right? Isn't it? So, and the kitten, excuse me, the cat, the kitten, and the rat. So, when the kitten is in the mouth of the cat, what is the experience of the kitten? Safety, affection, protection, right? And if that kitten has to get across Grand Avenue, would that kitten have a very easy time during a busy time on Grand Avenue to get across Grand Avenue? No. But in the mouth of a very expert cat, would the kitten even be thinking about the cars going 55 miles an hour down Grand Avenue? No, wouldn't he be thinking about it? My mom's got me. She's got it covered. I'm going to be on the other side before I know it, right? But then there's the rat. The rat, what is the rat in the mouth of the cat thinking? Fear. Death. It's all over, right? Right. So similarly, material nature, we can try as we might, right? The best plans of mice and men fall short, right? So many have tried. We had our Napoleons, we had our Hitlers, we had our this ones, that ones, we have our heroes, Genghis Khan, right? We have our emperors who, you know, as long as the sun shines and the moon shines, this empire will, you know, yeah, right. right? Sure, it's in it. When I was a kid, I used to read the encyclopedia. I liked history, and you read all these accounts. These people would such big, and now it's just a footnote in the encyclopedia, right? So we cannot overcome the material nature, but if we surrender to Krishna, it's like the kitten in the mouth of the cat. Very easily cross over it, because it's by Krishna's strength. It's by Krishna's strength. So Krishna is explaining who he is, who we are, where we are, how we are caught up in this trap, and how we can get out of it. And if one simply reads Bhagavad-gita, right, with an open mind and with a, Srila Prabhupada says in the introduction that at least theoretically, for the sake of understanding the Gita, say you're reading the Gita for the first time, just accept that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead and see what he has to say, right? And if we accept Bhagavad-gita, and if we follow Krishna's instructions in the Bhagavad-gita, Maya metam taranti te, by his grace, we can cross over this material ocean and go back home, back to Godhead. So it's probably time to stop. Is there time? Is there anybody that would like to give a correction, comment, question? Don't be shy. Oh, Guru Krishna Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. I'm not a scientist.
Me neither.
Comes as no surprise, right? But I've heard from some scientists, and they say that according to thermodynamics, everything is energy. And energy, they say, is eternal, according to thermodynamics. It just takes different forms, like the material energy, right? Constantly mutable.
Right.
And when I first heard that, I just thought, man, these guys are starting to catch up.
Yeah.
So then when I get these scientists in my car, I go, so you guys are men of science, aren't you? Oh, yes. Yes, everything's very scientific. Uh-huh. So where does consciousness come from? Have you figured that out yet? Oh, boy, it gets real quiet. I don't like that question. But Krishna's ahead of them, isn't he? He says that the consciousness is coming from the living entity. There's a superior nature, the living entity. That's another energy. The other question I say too is, well, there's different kinds of energy, right? No. There's just one kind of energy. Oh. It just transforms. Sometimes it's a, plant. Sometimes it's a, bucket of dirt, something like that. I say, but what about consciousness? I'm reading these books, and it says that consciousness comes from the superior energy. Wow. Oh, well, that's, I don't know about that. They say, that's metaphysical, and then, and that's not very scientific. I said, well, you don't have all the answers. You don't know where consciousness comes from. And sometimes I get a 1 star, but anyway.
Isn't it amazing that they can overlook that simple point? Like Srila Prabhupada, right, everywhere points out, like, what's the difference between a living body and a dead body? And you take that in a plant, you take it in an animal, you take it in a human. It's pretty obvious, isn't it? It's pretty immediate. When I was 6 years old, my father passed away. And I remember going toward the casket, and everyone's crying. And I remember people, his name was Bill. I remember people saying, Bill, where have you gone? And flash forward about 8 years, and I was reading Prabhupada's books and listening to his lectures. And in one lecture, he gave that exact example, that someone leaves and all the relatives are going before the person saying, where have you gone, right? And anyone who's been to a mortuary, they usually look better than they did in life, right? They have a system down. I mean, unless they're in a car wreck or something, they usually look great. So, if it had to do with the body being the self, nobody would be saying where you would be gone. They'd be going, hey, let's go out. We're ready. You're dressed up. Let's go for it. But everyone's crying because the person is obviously gone, right? Amazing that they can miss that, isn't it? Like you're pointing out, it's like these very intelligent people, but it's this culture of atheism. It's a culture, they just don't want to admit that there's somebody smarter than them, isn't it? Or more powerful than them. They just can't admit it. So they have to come out with these bombastic theories that like stare reality, just make no sense, Just throw reality to the most distant place possible. Like, I'm sorry.
Yeah, if you ask them, I also ask this too in fear of a 1 star, but, so that they say, you guys still kicking around the Darwin's theory of evolution, the Big Bang? Oh yeah, we still see everything's moving away. Everything's moving away. So there must have been some kind of implosion, explosion, expansion, something. Oh, okay, all right. That's your observation, okay. But, how did it all get started? Where did the ingredients come for this implosion, explosion, expansion? And you know what their best answer is? It came from nothing.
Logic.
It came from nothing.
That sounds logical.
I've never had an experience of reading any history book or any life experience where I had absolutely nothing. Because, number one, I had this body, I had the, mind, so that's already something to begin with. So if there's going to be this whole gigantic universe, it has to boil down into something. You can't get, absolute nothing, and then you get the universe from absolute nothing? Or what's your definition of nothing? That's nothing except for a little something? Well, that's not nothing.
It's amazing, isn't it?
And here they are. That's what Prabhupada said. 2 + 2 is 3. So they start with this basic, fundamental mistake that there is no spirit, that we're this body, and they build everything on top of that original mistake, and so therefore everything that they do after that is wrong. Even though all their trigonometry and whatever theory that they come up with, or mathematics, it's all based on this initial miscalculation. So it's all wrong.
It's amazing.
All of it. I'm sorry, Mr. Hawkins. And everybody else in your community, but you're all wrong.
It's amazing. Yeah, I don't know how we're doing on time, but Guru Krishna Prabhu's nice points that he's making, it was reminding me of, has everyone heard that story about Sir Isaac Newton and his model of the solar system? It's kind of on this point. It's a really nice story. He was a famous scientist, right? Somewhat medieval England, and he was a theist, and it was at a time when there were starting to be scientists that were atheists, and things were evolving in that direction. And he had made a model of the solar system that actually functioned. There was maybe like a crank or something, and actually planets spinning around, and it was a workable model of the solar system. And a scientist friend of his came over who was an atheist, and who he knew was an atheist, and the man was congratulating him that this model is splendid, this is such a wonderful, you're so intelligent, you did this, and like Sir Isaac's answer was, you're glorifying me for making a model of the solar system, but you're saying that nobody made the solar system that I'm making this little tiny model of? Hello? So I think we're out of time. Actually, it's just after 7. We have Kirtan now, is that correct? Yes. Well, thank you so much for your kind attention and association. Hare Krishna, glorious to Srila Prabhupada.